And call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mayor Parton,
Here.
Mayor Gore, Vice Mayor Gore, Councilor Joyner,
Here.
Councilor Harris. Here. Councilor Denton,
Here.
Councilor Pelham,
Here.
Councilor Holloway.
You have a quorum.
Yeah, quorum.
Okay. At this time, do we have a motion to allow Vice Mayor Gore to participate remotely?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Councilor Joyner and seconded by Councilor Pelham. Vice Mayor Gore, for the record, can you state where you're conducting the meeting from and your reasoning to participate remotely?
She's on mute.
She's mute.
Look like.
Vice Mayor Gore, can you hear us?
It says mute. Somebody on. She's on mute.
You text her? Did you text her?
It says she's on, but I can call, you wanna call her?
Yeah, just call her on the phone.
Yeah.
King.
Oh,
Oh, there. She's off mute now. Oh,
Okay.
Back on. Take yourself off mute.
Okay, can you state it for the record again? Okay. All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
She said yes.
Councilor
I'm
Pelham. Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway, Councilor Joyner,
She
Yes.
said
Councilor Harris.
he called board name first.
you have a quorum. Motion made.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29, discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and to the extent such discussion will be aided thereby.
So move.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made by Counselor Denton and seconded by Counselor Joyner. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway, Councilor Joyner,
Yes.
Councilor Harris. Yes. Motion passed.
Okay. Y'all can come on back. Motion's been made by Counselor Pelham and seconded by Counselor Joyner. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore, Councilman Dennis,
Council Denton.
Yes.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Councilman Harris,
Yes.
Councilman Ward, Councilman Pelham,
Yes.
motion passed, 5-0.
Okay. Certification, please.
Certification for Santa Virginia Code, 223722. Withholding public, business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements and identified in the closed meeting motion discussed in closed meeting. Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore, Councilman Denton,
Yes.
Councilman Pelham,
Yes.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Councilman Harris.
Yes.
Motion passed, 0.
Okay.
5-0.
All right. This time, do I have a motion to cancel the interim finance director's contract for $37,000 a month and to reallocate and reappropriate $330,000 for the Commonwealth reporting, finance director transition, and associated training and SOP implementation?
So move.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Counselor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Harris. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, you forgot to add the up to,
I'm sorry, you're right, up to $330,000.
So move.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore, Councilman Denton,
Yes.
Councilman Pelham,
Yes.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Councilman Harris.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. All right, R1, Dr. Manker.
Mayor Parton, Vice Mayor Gore, and members of City Council tonight. R1, we have invited, the school board to, have a discussion with council regarding their, munis implementation process. We invite them to include, or respond to, the project plan that they have in place, and to open the floor with discussion between city council and the school board. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Hackney to the podium. Hi, good evening.
See you all.
Good.
We've got our finance team and Dr. McLean here to
Okay.
answer any questions.
So I think we'd like to begin with, do you have copies or a presentation of your project plan for your implementation plan?
I did not bring copies of everything with me,
Okay.
but we do have several documents. We have the statement of work, project implementation plan.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you wanted all of that.
Yes, if you could, we'll pass
Get
it
it.
out, yes.
Can we get a copy?
I'm gonna get a copy.
Yes, I'll send IT to them. We can send IT to make copies. We can send IT to make
IT to make
copies.
copies.
Okay. Several documents. Start with that. Is Austin here today? Okay. I think while we wait on, IT to make copies for everybody, if you could kind of just walk us through your implementation plan with Munis and, the timeline, if you can just begin there, and I'm sure council has some questions as we go through that.
Okay. We, mostly Jessica and I and any other parties that need be, have been going through training on the Munis or Enterprise ERP modules. We have training an average of twice a week to set this up. We've gone through our chart of accounts, which took a really long time to do, to get it right. We've got chart of accounts, system administration, general ledger, project accounting, budget module, purchasing, accounts payable, capital assets, accounts receivable. We still are going into training for general billing, for cash management. We still have some conversions to do, like on all of our legacy vendors, things like that. We are also going to do training on Tyler Content Management, where we can upload content into the software. We're going to be adding employee expense module, which I know you guys have recently started implementing that as well. And those are what we have on the plan right now. The plan is to go live July 1st of 25. So basically a year from now, we'll have everything ready to go live. Payroll, we're trying to go live January 1st of 26. So 6 months later, after that, we'd go live with payroll. So we still do need to go through training to set up payroll, HR, talent management, recruiting, things like that. Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna run the programs parallel with each other with our current software and the new software to make sure we are getting the desired results. We also plan on, in the training, when we're training the end users, bringing like a pilot group in to go through and make sure that we've got everything set up the way, and it's working the way it's supposed to, because Jessica and I can sit there and train and test it ourselves, but we're also going to have the end users train and test it with us as well before we actually go live, so we can make sure we have everything right.
We'll open the floor for discussion. Any discussion, questions?
Okay. Counselor Jordan?
Yeah, I guess my question is, do you all, I mean, how do you feel about, given your human resources, given, the fact that, you may not be staffed to optimum levels, that kind of thing, how do you feel about going through an implementation of Munis? Do you anticipate troubles? Do you anticipate, you obviously think you can do this, but is this not going to stretch you, since you don't have any additional help with the implementation? That's kind of unusual, quite frankly. I'm not a municipal expert, but certainly in any businesses that I was in, we normally had a pretty focused group of people that would help with whatever system implementation it was. I mean, how do you feel about that? And have you allocated any additional resources? Where do you stand on that?
So I do feel good about implementing it. Saying that, we could always use help. We are stretched
Sure,
thin.
sure.
Jessica and I do have our day jobs to do, so we're doing this in addition to.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely
that's
right.
what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if there's help available, we're not opposed to getting help. We know we have to be intimately involved in this, so we know, what to implement, how to implement. We know our business rules, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have additional funds in our budget
Okay,
to go towards that.
all right. Thank you.
Have you guys put out like an RFP or anything for some subject matter experts to come in to help with this implementation?
No, sir, we have not.
Yeah, and maybe, I guess, just context, I mean, there's a variety of different programs that we implement. Power School with the Student Information System is a large one. We didn't bring in extra people for that. We are implementing different programs right now. Frontline,
Even when we
Parent
implemented,
Square. Our standard practice is that we do that with the staff we have. So
yeah.
I think if we came across something that caused us to feel like, oh, this is something that is a different kind of standard than what we normally would do, we would do that. We just haven't come across that yet at this point.
Well, I mean, the reason that I'm asking is because, the city, thought they could do it in-house. Now, granted, they made the huge mistake of running it and not running it in parallel with the old system. So I'm glad that you guys aren't making that mistake. But, I mean, Munis is a pretty complex, system, and I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence, but, I mean, I think that it, might behoove, and I mean, if it, costs dollars, to, pay for it up front, to bring in some subject matter experts to help with this implementation. I mean, I'd much rather pay up front and then, not have to pay for a massive cleanup like what we're doing right now on the city side.
Mayor Martin, I'd love to speak to that. We are not opposed to that.
Mhm.
And we just simply can't afford it. We have heard that could be upwards of $1 million to
Mhm.
bring in a third-party consultant, and we just don't have the money. We would love to have the help, as Janelle said. We are working very closely with our project management team at Munis, and we trust them, we have confidence in them, but we don't know what we don't know, and we admit that.
Mhm.
But we also know that our staffing is limited, because if we have any additional money for staffing, it's going to classrooms and
Mhm.
to people that directly touch and impact teaching and learning.
Mhm.
But we would welcome any additional support if that's the will of the council. We just assume that we need to do it with the funds that we have, and we're gonna do the best we can.
Well, I mean, I don't know, if it is $1 million, if it's more or less, but I mean, I would much rather pay $1 million up front right now. Let's make sure we do this thing properly, thoroughly, and everything is good, than to have to pay, $2.5+ million in cleanup, lose a bond rating, and experience everything that we've been going through, right now.
We're not anticipating putting you in that position, but
Right.
we don't disagree with that philosophy.
Mhm.
We would welcome the opportunity to front-load
Mhm.
the supports and ensure that, not your vision, we're not opposed to that. We just cannot absorb that in our current budget.
Okay. I mean, I don't know, what the will of council is, but I mean, I would recommend, maybe you, Dr. Manker, and the Robert Bob group, let's, sit down and let's, talk about, this additional assistance, and then, report back out to us, in a couple weeks.
Happy to do that.
If there is a price tag, how much it is, and, where we can try to find this. If, we can utilize, the cost savings we got, that now, we've moved past, the interim finance director, we're getting the new full-time one. We're gonna have some, additional cost savings, see what we can do. Is that okay with council?
Yes, well,
Okay.
I don't think you see my hand raised. I suggest that conversation be added to what we said earlier about bringing the subcommittee together.
Yeah, that's fine.
bringing what
Yeah.
together?
The subcommittee? Yeah, I asked Brittany to look it up. It's actually Counselor Joyner and Counselor Holloway, on the city side with Dr. Manker.
And what's the name of the committee?
The school board working group,
Oh, okay.
well, joint city council, school board working group.
Yeah, I think that all the takeaways from today, that conversation, the other points you want to raise, to call forward into that meeting, like we discussed in the back, and have a report out from our admin and the council that's on there, if the council agrees.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. All right, so I think we've got a consensus. I saw Counselor
I did.
Pelham's light and then Counselor Joyner.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well as, I wonder, anyone from the Bob group know exactly how many additional personnel it would take to do the conversion that they may need the help for? Cause how many people in your office right now, Ms. Janelle?
In my office, well, there's 3 of us in just finance, and there's 2 in payroll,
Okay,
so there's just 5
and they
of us
all
altogether.
full-time?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. But you have any idea how many people that it would take to implement a Muni system with the number of people they have? And
I have not done any.
can you talk in the mic, because people on TV can't hear you?
Oh, the mic is different.
We upgraded.
You upgraded. I have not done any in-depth conversations, with schools, and I would just be picking a number out of my head until we
Okay.
do that. So, I don't know is the short answer, but we certainly can do what you've asked us to do. and meet with them and try to get our hands around what's going on. And Adriana is also on the phone listening to this whole conversation. I actually think she's putting questions in the chat, which none of us can see. But, you know, she may have a better idea, but I don't like giving uneducated answers without having to go a full in there.
Well, if you're gonna be a part of the working group, that'd be great. Somebody from
I
Mr.
think let's get
Bob's
our hands
office.
around it. Who knows?
You know,
Counselor Joyner?
Right.
I just wanted to say that, obviously, we've talked about, meeting with these committees, but
The difference.
we've discussed that I think it's be a good thing for us to meet on a more regular basis so that we all know what's going on and that it's not an adversarial relationship. I mean, really, and you know, your core mission is to educate. And obviously, this is more a financial piece, but as we know, the finances make things go. And so we want to make sure that that piece is right and that we are, that we're in agreement on things and that there are no surprises. And that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, as Mr. Bob stated earlier, a successful city normally has a successful school system and vice versa. And, you know, we want to be successful. We want to be successful as a city in terms of our financial integrity, that kind of thing. And we want you all to be successful in your mission. And, you know, we're both providing services to the taxpayer. And so I look forward to more meetings.
We are open to that, and I can tell you, most of you don't own this, but our school board, and in particular our current and past chairs, have worked for years to make that happen. And stuff just comes up, you know what I mean, on both sides. But I do think that, and I can speak for Dr. Manker, we talk, and we would love to do that. And I think what we need to do is maybe set up an annual quarterly calendar.
Yes.
Because then we don't get lost in
Absolutely.
the operational insanity sometimes.
Exactly.
And I can certainly work with Dr. Manker to make that happen immediately. Our board is very invested in that. They've asked for it for years.
Okay, Dr. Mack, can you
Yeah,
set this up? Yeah.
Do what now?
She's requesting,
I'd like to make a motion that we set this, a quarterly meetings and set it up. I mean,
you don't have to make a motion.
I don't have to make a motion,
You just gotta ask the mayor to provide me a directive.
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead and do that and, you know, project out, you know, for the rest of this and then just, you know, send out an email
next
to
year's.
council
yep.
so we can poll and get those on the books.
Okay.
That's for next week?
No.
For this year and
This
next year.
Yeah. And then next year, when we do the city council calendar, we can, you know, already
Yeah,
have that,
include it in
yeah,
there.
baked into it. Okay? And then while you're also doing that, kill two birds with one stone, put HRHA in there as well.
yes.
Quarterly meetings,
Yeah,
calendar.
yeah. Counselor Denton.
Janelle. Well, this is the Munis program that you all are going to implement. We have the Munis program as well. Do we know that they will work well together so that the reports that we need for audits and things will be easier to gather? That it's the same system that we're all on, that if we wanted to check on a report, we can look in our Munis system and find it in your Munis system?
No.
So the Munis software is going to be in two separate databases. The city's gonna be in one database and ours is in a different database. So we're not feeding into each other. So anything we do is not gonna affect your books. Anything you do is not gonna affect our books. But they should be able to produce the same types of reports that you need. And if there's anything, like say the treasurer's office needs a report from us, we can provide any type of crosswalk that they may need, because our account codes are totally different than the city's account codes. We have to have our account codes built based on the annual school report that has to be filed with the state. So they are different, but it should be the same types of reports that Munis offers.
And we have also included access to
Who's
the,
gonna make sure of that?
Go ahead.
so we are also ensuring that the city will have access, they will have their own username and password into our system so that they have direct
Like a-
access.
like,
And
yeah.
inquiry
Like,
access.
yeah, read-only
Required,
access.
yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so they'll be able to, and they'll know how to navigate it because they have the same system. So they will have direct access to everything that we
Yeah,
have.
they won't be able to change anything or, add anything to it, but they will be able to go in and view our reports.
Yeah, I guess I just had visions like we would be the same, Munis for everybody. And that at the end of the month, when you have your financial reports, we would draw them and everybody would see them. It'd be like working together. Because I think that's one thing we do need to do is to work together. But that's not gonna be the case.
Not exactly, no ma'am, because, like I said, there will be differences in how we report things, but the reports, we should still be able to draw down the same report. If it's a canned Munis report, we should be able to run the same report on our end and provide it to you.
And we were working with Russ to make crosswalks between the city's Munis system and our system so that the information can be communicated correctly between the two.
Well, I won't be here, but I will be watching because it worries me. And I am concerned, so, but thank you.
Counselor Joyner?
Yeah, I've got a question about the timeline right now. Okay, so I'm looking at, the reports that you gave us are basically Tyler Munis manuals.
Right.
Okay. And not really your operational plan, that kind of thing. Have we missed a deadline for this? I mean, were we supposed to be farther in on this, or, was there supposed to be an operational plan done by now? I mean, I'm just curious, and, yeah.
We have not missed a deadline.
Okay.
We were working with Munis to make sure this does happen by July 1st
Okay.
of next year. I do have a separate timeline here that I can provide you if you'd like.
So, it's fine, you can do it later, but.
Okay, and it does show what we've done and.
Well, that would be probably the most useful thing for us tonight, but that's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yeah, I can get that to you so you
Okay.
have that. But
Okay,
yes,
that'd be great.
we're working very closely with our project manager to make sure that we stay on task, so we do get
Okay,
this done.
who is the project manager for this?
The project manager now is Peter Pilato. Our previous manager just took a leave of absence.
Okay,
So-
okay,
so
but you do have a project manager now for this, okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thanks.
And when you buy programs like this, don't they provide certain number of hours training too? Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
I think Adriana has some questions in the Zoom chat. Can we pull those up?
Thank you. I think my first question was, is the chart of account was compliant with state reporting requirements? And it seems like you ladies have done your homework.
Did you understand it?
Couldn't understand.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. The chart of accounts, yes, we have built those based on the state chart of accounts website that we have to use to complete our annual school report.
Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you finalized your chart of accounts and loaded that into your production?
She's one of the consultants working for the Robert Bob Group.
We have completed the chart of accounts and they are loaded in production.
Okay. Prior to loading the chart of accounts into your production environment, were you able to test your actuals and budget balances?
So we don't have any of our actual and budget balances in there at this time. We don't have the dollar figures in there yet.
Okay.
We are actually waiting until hopefully the city finishes with all the audits and we get firm numbers, because we do not want to put bad numbers in this system. We want the right numbers in there.
Yes, yes. And I think that sometimes even though we don't have finalized numbers, I like to see clients import numbers you have now into a trainer test environment so that you can actually see your chart of accounts, working and running, account trial balance and, balance sheet reporting. Have you been able to do any of those reporting testing yet?
We have not done those in testing, but we do have everything, like the chart of accounts and most things that we've gone over are in our production and our test and our train databases. So yes, we do plan on doing that, definitely testing all that way before we go live.
Okay, and I understand sometimes based on the standard project plan that's offered, budget and actuals are not really reviewed until after the chart of accounts is completed. I like to try to test that before the chart of accounts is completed, just so that we can confirm the reporting is accurate and things are crosswalked correctly. And I have one more question. When you completed your chart of accounts, did you implement a pooled cash fund, or did you process the classic option they offer where they process all duties from transactions through your general fund?
Yeah, it was the pooled cash.
Awesome, okay, I can breathe a little easier. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from city council? Okay.
Thank you. Convocation still on?
Dr. Hackney?
Convocation still on tomorrow? Is convocation still tomorrow?
It's Friday.
Friday, okay, thanks.
Okay. R2? Yeah.
How do I? How do I get onto this? Anyone know? Ah. Sorry, now you've got to type in. Okay, it's not just me. Sorry, the system's locked. Hopefully you guys have a copy of this in front of you. I'll send it over on Friday. Just doing this for the benefit of those behind me. All right. Level set, we scheduled or requested this special meeting a couple of months ago, post implementation go live, which is actually why Adriana happens to be on the phone, to go through some progress to date. If you remember the last time we were here, about a month ago, I sort of said, this is go time, like, let's get everything moving, and then at the end of it, let's all get together and give everyone a really solid progress update about how the implementation and how the SOPs are going, and how the audit status is going. So that's what I am seeking to do here today. So please feel free to interrupt and ask questions. Some of this is quite new. So the agenda today is our usual, progress to date and recent successes, but then we're gonna go through some internal control deficiencies, some future expectations, We're gonna do a real deep dive into standard operating procedures, and we'll do a deep dive into how the ERP implementation went July 1 and what's still left to go. And then we're gonna start talking about transition plan. And so this is really seeking to be less like my usual presentation where I get up here and talk, and more like a two-way conversation where you can stop me and ask questions as we go along. So it's much longer than it normally is. So, all right, key points if you were gonna pull anything out of here. Is to share the progress, to share the future outlook, to show, I just covered this. Okay, progress to date. All right, key achievements and milestones. First and foremost, our true-up process has been approved by our industry partners. Our bank reconciliations have been completed straight through 2023, with the exception of 2 fixed asset accounts, which actually should have been done today. We had to put one more munis report that we were waiting for access to do. And fiscal year 2024 is underway. The estimates are actually already completed. We had to get as close as possible for the pooled cash implementation, which if you look at the next bullet is complete, as well as the big contract module implementations, all as of July 1st. Bank reconciliation manager is set up and in test. That is about to go live, and I think I just heard schools refer to the employee expense, which is about a month or 2 out. For SOPs, we are in final approval for budget, personal property, public service, bank franchise tax, SOP, Word documents, in all of those respective departments of the 22. This is the first time I've actually come to you saying to you that these are approved and functional. Financial transparency for industry partners. I started talking a little bit about this, but I wanted to add a little bit more detail. We have come to an agreement with the industry partners on the true-up process. In doing so and in explaining the process, and also we've taken the additional step with Russ of actually documenting an agreement with the process moving forward. So if you remember when we went into this process, I'm gonna scooch into this next piece. If we went into the process when we first got here at the end of last summer, there was a lot of, we don't know which numbers to use, we don't know, because for the prior years prior to 2017 and 2017 on, they have used multiple different processes, and so it was hard to get to a single point of truth. So we went through a pretty painstaking process to work with the industry partners to get to a single point of truth and to reconcile to that agreed upon single point of truth, to agree on those reconciliation numbers, then to create a process for how to do it going forward, and then to have those industry partners approve that process so that everyone is on the same page going forward. This is ahead of and will be included in the next industry partner commission. I think you guys call it the Industry Wastewater Commission. So that 2025 agreement that's coming up, that next amendment, this should be included in that, but that has been documented and unanimously approved. There is a new project initiative and a new capital allocation plan is also being developed to address past operational overruns and fund future capital projects, which will enhance collaborative efforts moving forward. So now, rather than being reactive to what is going on in the wastewater treatment plant, we are now seeking to be proactive and create a plan for what happens if there's a problem, as well as put in deferred maintenance plans and work towards those deferred maintenance plans that are prioritized. So we're really working, and Russ has been really, when he took over a couple of months ago, I was able to transition from our industry team and really move it over to Russ to build that relationship and work with those industry partners to make sure that they're getting what they need, but also that the city is protected for future longer-term overruns and unexpected expenses. Any questions on the industry piece before I move on? I don't know why I'm so cold, I'm like shivering. It's freezing up here. I'm so sorry, I feel like I'm very spotty in my words because I'm freezing. So if you can't hear me, let me know. All right, the next piece. The fiscal year 19 to 23 bank reconciliations, which, as you recall, we did manually from bank statements up back from 2019, are complete. for fiscal year '24 bank reconciliations. We can't finalize those until the city closes their books. We're done with what we can do until the books are closed. So I would say we're mostly final through May because we haven't closed the books on June. But once that gets done, we're really close. As I said, because of the pooled cash implementation, and the schools correctly stated, you don't want to put bad numbers in. So we didn't want our Munis team to put bad numbers in, so we worked ahead for the 2024 as much as we could. So we'll have to do one adjusting journal entry later on, once those books are closed. For other reconciliations, we are also complete with the enterprise and schools, tax receivable, accounts payable, debt services, through fiscal year '23. We are not complete with fixed assets for 2 years. As I said, I think those are getting finalized today, but because we submitted this over on Friday, it shows it's not complete. So this shows where we are. As I said, everything says TBD fall for fiscal year '24. While we completed a very good estimate, we are still going to do it again, not the whole thing, but the end, once the books are closed. So we've gone ahead and done that. For fixed assets, we are done straight through fiscal years 19, 20, 21. That to say, Robinson Farmer Cox has everything for 19, 20, 21. They have all of the reconciliations with the exception of fixed assets for 22 and 23. Otherwise, they've also got everything for 2023, just so everyone understands. Okay, audit status. We have gotten Robinson Farmer Cox to agree to an August 15th deadline for the 2020 draft financial report. So that is the external audit report. We are, if you remember last time I was here, I was telling you we were meeting with them weekly. We're now meeting with them daily, so that we can help get them there as fast as possible. They are redoing their methodology just as we did. This is the first run round for them. They're also doing 2019 and 2020 to get to 2020. My anticipation, if you remember, we handed 2019 and 20 over to them, I think, in January, and so here we are in July. I don't anticipate that taking 6 or 7 months to do 21. They have their methodology in place at this point. But as we talked about, it would make sense after they have the 15th report to have them come present publicly like I do, and then we can get those questions. So we're anticipating on that. I would love, once they've gotten 20 off, to have an expected timeline like we did for Munis and like we do for most other projects for when we can expect 21, 22 ongoing. All right. Our expected results, and this is where I'm going to delineate between a clean audit and then an audit without material weaknesses. And I'm going to just state this because while as of July 1, we have done our best to reduce and remove the material weaknesses over things like automated controls and standard operating procedures, those things like pooled cash, like the standard operating procedures, like the security roles, one of the things I didn't cover, and I know Adriana and I will cover it later, is we've done quite a bit of password and security controls work in the system. Those were intended to clear the prior identified material weaknesses. However, they take place now, at this point in time, which is the beginning of fiscal year 25. So while we are expecting for fiscal year 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, is that right? For the financials to be a clean opinion, right, and not an unqualified, it'll be a clean opinion. But you'll still see those material weaknesses in there for the items because they're still going to be doing the manual audit. Does everyone understand what I'm trying to say here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not speaking as intelligently as Jack would be if you were here. All right. Let's talk a little bit about control deficiencies and future expectations. To remove these material weaknesses, we wanted to provide you a definition of what a material weakness is. Material weakness exists when there is one or more problems in our process for overseeing financial reporting. So it's not a onesie thing, right? It's not because one person has access to a system that they shouldn't have access. It's because there is no process in place to remove, and this is an example, I'm not saying that this is the case here. There's not a whole process to remove people from the system when they're terminated. It would be that there are 100 unterminated employees in because no process exists. Those are the kinds of things. It would be something like a shared password, those kinds of things. An overall pervasive halt in the control environment that impacts, this is the bottom piece of this, that impacts the city's financial statements by doing a number of things, right? It could make it so that there are things being unintentionally added or deleted, but if there's access that there's not supposed to be and there's no way to audit that access, or if there are shared passwords, people to be able to add and delete things with no audit trails or those kinds of things, that would lead up to one information technology weakness because they cannot opine. And that raises the risk of fraud or material misstatement because there is a larger weakness in the control environment. So while we have not cleared, I think, what did we say, there are about 113, give or take, issues that were identified between us and the external auditor, what we've tried to do is pick out the bigger pervasive items that would create a material weakness so that we can remove those in 25 moving forward. In case you're curious, significant deficiencies, the past audit findings have been shown in significant deficiencies. So these are things, shared passwords, lack of policies and procedures, those kinds of things. Procedural gaps, these are proper procedures, proper controls. So these are, like Christy who's sitting over here, those standard operating procedures, again, not desktop. We're not teaching people how to do their job. We are teaching them the proper procedures and the proper control environment for to prevent financial misstatement. Training issues. There's insufficient staff training on the ERP system and financial management processes. So it doesn't help that standard operating procedures, if they exist, which now they do, but they didn't before. If the standard operating procedures exist, but no one knows about them, no one knows where to find them, no one's reviewing them annually or quarterly, no one's updating them with new updates to the system, and no one's being trained on them, they're kind of like a ghost, right? They're just floating out there and they're not doing anything to prevent the control environment. And then there is operational oversight of those. So we met with the new assistant city manager. I think that's your title, right, James?
Yes,
We met deputy city manager. We met with the new deputy city manager today to start talking through transitional items and the buckets of things that he would need to take over as we transition out and we pass the torch over. And there were multiple buckets of things, but one of them specifically was around policies and procedures, updates, regular updates. So the auditors are going to look for, are you revisiting these policies and procedures at a period or an interval that's regular? Are you documenting that there were changes made? What were the changes made? Who's signing off and approving those? And are those being retrained on? So we had a large conversation about, well, we're going to give training on the SOPs that we are creating as they are today. As things move forward or there's new employees that come on board, they all need to be trained accordingly. That's how you close that significant deficiency. Questions on those? Okay. This is just a little bit of a lesson on why this matters. Because people would say, okay, if we're taking the bank statements and we are rebuilding the financial statements like we did for 19, 20, 21, 22, why does it matter? For starters, it matters in your pocketbook, right? If your external auditor or your internal auditor is rebuilding from a financial statement, it is a lot of work. You know how long we've been here. You know how long it took us to do that, right? If you can rely on your system for automated controls, that significantly cuts down the time not only for the people who are preparing it and your financial team here, as well as your external auditor. So that will make your external auditor, it has less of a workload when you push it over to an external auditor, which is one of the things that we're looking to do. The other piece is to cut down on financial inaccuracy, to reduce any particular audit issues. If you guys are proactively doing things instead of reactively doing them, that's much better. And there is a piece in here that we've been working through with the SOPs, while not our original target, is also a side benefit. when we're going through and doing our standard operating procedures for the financial statements, we are also looking for ways to do things more efficiently. So sometimes there may be a duplication where someone's doing something in the system. What was the case here, which was particularly interesting, someone was doing something in the system, someone was doing something out of the system, and the in the system didn't match the out of the system, which is what we saw, for example, with the Hopewell wastewater treatment plant, which is why we had, when I said we had to find one core place to start, right? One version of the truth. There were two versions of the truth. So now we have one efficient process with one point of truth. So there's no, like, is it the right hand or the left hand? How do we true them up? There aren't two people doing two separate things. There's one person doing one thing. So you're getting efficiency in people as well as efficiency and accuracy of numbers. And the last piece, of course, is the compliance risks. Not only do we care about the financials and the financial statement audit, we had a pretty rigorous conversation back there about what the Commonwealth requires in reporting and those kinds of things. There's also larger compliance risks as well. All right. This is a refresher. We've shared this with you before, but in fiscal year 25, we are focusing on enhanced controls and systematic controls. We're talking about enhanced accuracy, clean audits, increased efficiency, strengthened compliance, and honestly, the great benefit of all of this is it should boost the confidence of all of the employees who have been with you guys, sort of toughing it out in the trenches with limited resources. They now have something to rely on, and so the hope would be that you're also boosting their confidence. All right. Standard operating procedures, our favorite topic. Little comment, quote here that Christy put in: standardization is a necessary foundation for improvement. Without standardization, there would be no improvement. So what we have sought to do was to not only improve the processes, but to standardize them. So, for example, everyone in Russ / now Stacy's office is doing everything. They know what they're doing, and they're doing consistently. I see someone from the treasurer's office here. Hi, Nika. She's here. So everyone in her office is doing things consistently as well. So, and Sharon, sorry. Hi, Sharon. Please in the direction. Everyone gets the idea to do everything the same, standardized, so everyone has a repeatable result that should, unless your financials for the city are doing weird things that are unexpected, they should have expected outcomes. So we should know what that balance is going to be. We're going to talk a little bit about pooled cash and why we should also know it from that a little bit later, but now you're getting it from both sides. All right, so here's where we are in SOP progress and key milestones. Here's where we are with our Word documents. As a reminder, we have Word documents that are the SOPs, and we also have the Visio process flows. They are meant to interact, but just like everyone else. Some people like to read, some people like to see, some people like to do. I myself am a doer, but depending on how you see the information and how you take it in, you want to make sure there's at least two ways, which is why we do the Visio process flows. Also, if you have no patience and you don't want to read through 48 pages, you can get the general gist of it by going through the Visio process flow, which is quite a bit smaller. The Word documents have the details beyond it. So here's where we are for approved Word documents. I want to remind you, none of these were checked off when we were here a month ago. So we have had a great deal of process forward. Budget, accounts payable, procurement, payroll, bank franchise, public service, personal property, and business property have approved Word documents. For next steps, by the end of July, we are hoping for an additional 10 documents. And I use the word hoping because we are here and we've had some delays. Christy and her team will be back next week in person to try to move these forward and muscle them up. We would also like our first 8 Visio process flows to be approved and in review. For August, the idea, frankly, the word of August is training, train. So we'll finalize the remaining SOPs and Visio documents and get those through the approval process and then train.
Councilor Joyner, you had your line.
You sort of answered it because I was
Oh.
concerned about we had some discussions about some delays and so forth, and you talked about the implications of some delays in certain departments, and those are those 10 additional SOPs. I just didn't know how many there were that hadn't been completed, but I see here
If you
now.
want the whole readout of what's completed and what's coming and what's in review and why we have, second reviews, third reviews, fourth reviews, look at slides 20, which I'm about to go through, 20, 21, 22.
Yeah.
That gives you the painstaking details of everything.
Yeah, I
if
looked
you're
at
into
those
details.
earlier today, but, I wanted to make sure that I was clear on what hadn't been done, that's all.
Yes, this
I have a
gives you
question.
everything.
Okay, Counselor Pelham?
What is a Beacon Theater in all
As a
of this?
component unit?
Huh?
As a component unit?
Yeah, is it a department or what?
Yeah, so, I'm gonna go back up. Sorry, bear with me for a second. It should be here, the last two lines, they're done through, you see? Here?
They're finished through
They're
fall,
finished through 2023, we're mostly done with
and everything was
2024.
okay?
Mhm. I mean, manual, okay, yes. But
Manually?
they're small, don't forget what they are.
I know they are small,
Yeah.
but they didn't have, they have no issues now.
Again, they're
But they didn't know how
small
to-
and manual, so like they're not on a big system, it's more like, when you do your personal taxes, you're going through
really?
receipts and that kind of stuff, but yes, they were there, and we were able to reconstruct.
Okay. And what does those numbers mean at the end? I don't.
Those
that
are just
they're-
the certain account numbers.
Okay,
It's
that's
just,
all.
we reconcile by line item, so when we, everything especially when we do it manual, we do it for certain account lines and funds. It's an easier way for us to track our progress. I'm not gonna go through these painstaking details about where we are. The important part to us is that we now have green boxes that say approved with sign off on some of these. So, but you can see where we are. I know we've talked to you about this before. We weren't anticipating, a lot of these things are in review 3. So that tells you when, in some situations, we may not be getting what we need if we go through one document. And a lot of times we do a review, we make updates for a review, we send it out for final approval, and we are done. Some of these things are now having to go through second and third reviews because there are either conflicts between departments or someone's asking something else from another department or that kind of stuff. And in order to make sure we've gotten it right, we will then we basically make changes and send out for review until people come back in agreement. So it's a little bit like a mediation. So, and to remind you, not only are we trying to get interdepartmental consolidate, what's the word I'm looking for? Cooperation, thank you. Not only are we trying to get interdepartmental cooperation, which is hard because there's some of these 22 SOPs that have multiple departments included. We're also pushing towards a future state for a system that went live, I don't know, where are we, 3 weeks ago, give or take. So there wasn't a lot of experience in the system. So what was happening is we were creating a new process. So it's a merge of what they have historically done and what they should be doing to account for either the way it should be done for a financial report or the way the Commonwealth needs to see it, those kinds of things. So all of those things have been taken into effect. So it's kind of an amalgamation of all the things coming together. But that's why you're seeing sometimes post-review 3 still needing updates. There'll be a review 4 on that particular document.
Counselor Pelham?
What about CSA? How are they? Have you finished?
This is where I need you. These are the details.
So CSA has been drafted, and it's nearing review. We have an additional meeting that was requested on Wednesday of next week with social services. So we've met with CSA, we drafted it, we feel good about it, but based on some information from finance, we now have a 4-hour meeting with social services to get additional content. So I will have better information on how much additional work will be needed on that one after that meeting on Wednesday.
Yeah, DSS and CSA are different, right?
I'm sorry.
What's it?
Did you say social
Comprehensive
services versus CSA?
No, yes, CSA is different from social services.
Correct, but social services has a component, I guess, of CSA, and there's been some challenges with finance. So we were pulled in to have a separate meeting about what some of the challenges are to make sure it gets in the SOP properly. So we have the original SOP ready to be final reviewed. We're meeting with finance and social services directly to understand what additional components need to be done before we go to final review.
Okay, so that'll be worked out.
So we're nearly done. We thought we were done.
Oh,
And then this raised its head about, this is why we have some of these reviews. About 2.5 weeks ago, I got an email from finance that said, hey, did you know about this?
yeah, special welfare fund, I'm always worried about that. Where they just drop money anywhere when they feel like it.
Not exactly sure all those pieces, but so we're meeting with social services for the component that's been impacted with finance and for CSA, and we'll have a better understanding if it's going to finish quickly or if it's going to take a little bit of additional time.
Okay.
As I said, this is a bit like a mediation, right? Because when we first came in, I remember we sat all the major, financial heads down and we said, okay, tell us how money moves through the city. Where does it come from? How do you guys interact? And where does it go out? And everyone looked at us like we were crazy. So we knew right away we had to not only do standard operating procedures for individual departments, but we had to include in those SOPs where each department talks to each department, and we had to get agreement on that. So what is the treasurer doing versus what finance is doing versus what core is doing? So everyone fully identifies and understands what their particular role is.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're gonna get duplication, or the worst, in my opinion, which is you're getting two numbers coming out from two different places. So at the end of this, you should have one large map that everyone should understand, and I'm sorry I'm picking on you guys because you're here, but Treasury should understand what their piece of that role is and how they should get to it.
Mm-hmm.
In my defense, Russ was here last time and I think.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm now warming up a little bit. All right, here's what's next. Repository updates. We've started creating a repository because, as I said, if you create, it's like if a tree falls and no one hears it, does it really fall? Yes, we can create the SOPs, but if no one's using it and no one has them available, they don't really matter. So we're putting them out there. We are now working with security because obviously you don't want to put the Word, we have to transition the Word documents to someone, but we have to be careful with the Word documents because we don't want any old person having access because there needs to be agreement on the whole process. So what will be available to everyone except for a small group will be just PDFs that are read-only. We are going to figure out a security structure for the originals. We are also moving through my August month of training. You'll get to see Christy here a lot. And then we're now trying to identify who's responsible for updating each SOP. So there should be, if there is an SOP that touches multiple departments, each department will have a responsible person, which means when James sends them out annually for review, it is him who's now going to be the mediator. He's like me, and he's going to have to talk to each one of those people that have that piece of the pie who's been the identified or responsible reviewer that's been identified by that department head. So all of that stuff is happening now, so it'll be built into the repository and also built into that little, each SOP has like a review thing in the front for who's responsible for it, and then there's, what days they reviewed it, when the changes were made, all of those things. All right, this closes up SOP conversations. Before I take advantage of Adriana coming from up on and go through ERP implementations and questions, is there anything else on SOPs? All right, because I am here in person, I am going to take a stab at the slides for the implementation milestones for the ERP, and then I'm going to let Adriana, you're still out there, right? I hope. Adriana? Can we see her out there?
Sign off.
She's out there?
She's on.
Okay. Well, hopefully she'll still be there. Can you text her just to make sure? I'll go through the basics, and then I would hope that we'll go through all of the details as you have detailed questions with Adriana, because she's really the brains behind all the ERP items. Okay. Our goal for pooled cash and bank reconciliation implementation was to institute ERP cash management and bank reconciliation manager best practices. Last time I was here, I turned around to the audience and I tried to explain what pooled cash was. This is going to give you the availability and opportunity to see in your bank account instead of seeing one number. And I know I get really excited about this because every morning we get an email from her that says this is what's in the bank account. We will be able to see it. Oh, here she is. Okay. Oh, for some reason we can't hear her.
Oh, and she says, I can hear you and Russ can hear me, but you cannot.
Is there a
Ross
speaker?
is ahead,
Is this because I turned your speaker off? Is it tied to here?
No, it's not, that has nothing, okay.
Austin.
Anyone?
Austin go.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna do my best, and Adriana, as you have things to add, just send me a note and I'll look down. I don't know. The mics aren't on your end. I can hear Adriana, so they can talk internally, but we can't hear them.
Here it is.
Oh, hey, quick question. On the Zoom, they can hear us and they can talk to each other, but we aren't hearing what they're saying.
We were a little while ago.
That's true. I
Well,
don't know what happened.
while he's working on that, I have a feeling that you're gonna go over 20 minutes.
I don't know, that's up to you.
We need to extend.
Yeah. I was
Doesn't have
like,
any questions.
do I have a motion to extend the meeting until they finish their presentation?
So moved.
All right, motion's been made by Counselor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Pelham. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Joyner,
Yes,
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay.
Anything? Just want to make sure. Adriana, any luck? Nope. All right, I'm gonna keep talking until they fix that, so we don't lose time. Okay, so pool cash is in. It's successfully in. It went in July 1st. We had a little hiccup towards the end of it where everyone changed the accounting structure on us on literally Thursday. So our team put in a lot of extra hours over the weekend to test that new structure and get it in. And when I say our team, I don't just mean our team, I mean our team. So we can't do that alone. Your team was here too. City staff, they're now using pool cash for all fiscal year 25 cash transactions. The initial balances were loaded. Again, I talked about this. We took a guesstimate. It was a pretty well-educated guesstimate, so I'm not anticipating much difference. But we will, at month end, do one adjustment once we have everything squared away for the end of the closure of the books for fiscal year 24 and the start of July 1st for fiscal year 25. We had the bank reconciliation manager, which was always supposed to come after pooled cash because it's a reporting piece of it that comes after it, is ready to go. I think they're doing a little bit more testing. Adriana's correcting me. Testing for the balances are being done this week, she wants you to know. So once that gets done, we're then moving through and we will move bank reconciliation testing bank reconciliation manager from test into production. All right, next action, city staff will continue testing bank reconciliation manager. If it's successful, as I said, the week of the 29th, it's gonna move into production. If not, if we have any hiccups, we're gonna test a little bit more and then we'll put it in as soon as we can. I haven't seen or heard of any issues thus far, so let's knock on some wood because we're on Wednesday. And they will continue to assist and support as we move forward to get bank reconciliation manager up and rolling. We've all talked about the impact for pooled cash, so because we're running a little bit late, I'm gonna kind of skip through this, but the idea is streamlining the bank reconciliation cash management process, but also it's a really handy dandy tool for you guys as council members to know exactly where we are in every fund at any point you want to know that. Adriana is typing in, and again, because she can't speak, I am her. Yes, we want to confirm that the team is very comfortable with the bank reconciliation before we start moving into production, and they're doing a great job. So far, so good. Expected outcomes of future implementation. We're expecting enhanced cash management, consistent bank reconciliations, and streamlined processes. As much fun as it is for everyone to go through and manually reconcile everything, this kind of gets rid of that. All right, next piece is the bid contract management implementation, which is supposed to optimize your procurement process. That also was successfully implemented, which marked a major milestone. Next actions is just supporting and stabilizing. As anyone has any questions, like anything else, this is new functionality. People have new things that they've got to learn. They're going to have questions as we go along. It's a lot easier, as you can see, to get to Adriana and Tony than it is to sort of do a change order with Tyler and have them come explain to you. So our team has been on call to stabilize things quickly.
The mayor's not here, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. With regard to the bid contract management, I mean, obviously I haven't seen the reports that come out, that kind of thing. Is that going to enable our employees to actually look and see when contracts, when the renewal dates are, that kind of thing? Does that have any, or are we totally just talking about?
Certain employees, yes.
Pardon?
Yes,
Yeah,
certain
okay.
employees, yes.
Yeah.
But not all employees.
Oh, no, but I meant those people that need to see that,
Yes.
absolutely. So it would be, because right now, everything's paper and all around.
Yes,
and-
this gets
yeah.
rid of all that, and it puts in a
Okay.
full streamlined
Well,
procurement
particularly
process.
like for our city attorney, that would be very useful, to be able to see the contracts and so forth and so on.
Okay,
Just
hold
want to
on.
make sure that the
It should
report,
be
I
a
haven't seen these
suspense,
reports.
it should be a suspense date of a year before the contract has to be bidded out, I would imagine.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
some type of
There's a
pop-up.
brand new process, and I think, Adriana, if you're not seeing the text, they want you to log out and log back in. And hopefully you can answer that in more detail. The short answer is yes and yes. The specifics, I do not know how she set up the system for the timeline for you and who's able to see what.
Right, I mean.
So in 5 years,
appropriate
you're supposed to
employees.
rebid, somebody should know that the day before.
No,
We
there should
haven't
be an
been
alert
doing
that
that.
comes off, and you should be able to see it. You should be able to pull a report for all the
Yes.
contracts you have in process and what the end date is.
Right.
So
And
if you have
manage
an
it,
active
yeah.
procurement professional who is doing this as their sole job, they should be able to see what they've got in their purview when things are coming to an end and what they
Right.
need to do.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, here we go. Okay, life cycle management, centralized control, enhanced oversight, improved compliance. Bid management, centralized procurement, enhanced visibility, time efficiency, and procurement efficiency. It also, I have a couple of notes here that I'm just gonna, it does also facilitate everything that you're saying. So again, I just don't know what the specifics were for when she started setting the alerts off to notify when it goes, but I'm sure it's probably configurable. So if anyone has a preference, now would be the time. That being said, we did work with the procurement department to get to that appropriate time, so it's not like just a shot in the dark. All right. Employee expense reimbursement. This is not done. There have been a couple of delays with this, some on our side with the city and some on Tyler's side. The net is this is the one that sort of requires the most change. To refresh everyone's memory, employees were set up as vendors, which is not a best practice. Now we would like to get them set up properly as expenses, but that does sort of lock down the controls that people have. From an audit perspective, that's purposeful. From an efficiency of people trying to do what they need to do, they have new things they have to learn. So this was probably the one that has the most organizational change impacts on this, so we've had multiple trainings. We have completed 4 training sessions I'm gonna say this as politically as I can, for better alignment to the city and the appropriate resource from Tyler. We went back and we requested a new consultant to come in and do the remainder of the training. Unfortunately, we had someone assigned from Tyler, and for whatever reason, despite it being their issue, we kind of went back to the start of the line. So it's not like when we request someone new, they say, oh yeah, sorry, this person's not working out for you, here's a new person. They say, sorry, this person's not working out for you, we have someone, but they're not gonna be available for 6 more weeks. So that has pushed back the timeline. They have, though, reported and asked for training to start in early August, and this is where the city then caused the delay. The city did not want to do the training in the first dates that were available. They opted for the later dates that were available. And if you happen to read the status reports that we put out every Monday, this is a newly identified items from keeping us moving forward. You'll see it in there. So the fear here, and this is the risk here, right? If we don't start the training until late August, the earliest implementation for employee expense reimbursement isn't going to come until at least October 1st, and our ERP consultants are only on contract through October 31st. So if everything goes swimmingly, no problem. We're good. If everything does not go swimmingly and things don't stabilize, or for whatever reason there are additional delays on Tyler's side or your side, we then start pushing things back to October 15th, October 31st, we're starting to get into the danger zone. So this is something we're keeping a close eye on. We did meet with Dr. Manker and James earlier this week, encouraging them to encourage their employees to do the training earlier. The earlier we can do the training, the better off we are all going to be. That was just 2 days ago, so I'm not sure what's gonna come out of that, but that was our discussion and our guidance back to the city.
So what's the reason for the city doing it later as opposed to now?
Timing and availability of resources is what I believe.
Can't hear you. Who said something?
She could hear you. So Dr. Manker, they had asked, remember the conversation we had on Monday regarding the availability of staff for the employee expense reimbursement training? And we had said that there were earlier dates, but that your staff opted to push back to the later dates. And remember, we had said, go back and talk with them. And do you know the reasoning that they had given for the later dates? I think it was just employee resources.
For which group?
For employee expense reimbursement.
That was due to Tyler,
No, that was the
needed.
first part. Tyler gave us the dates for,
We had to change, project managers.
we did. And then they assigned a new project manager and they gave us, I wanna say, and I wish Adrian, this is where.
early August.
They did early August dates and then late August dates, and the staff chose to only do the late August dates. Remember, we raised this as a risk for October 1st for implementation deadline on Monday?
I just don't recall.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, we have to find out what the reasons were, but we have to follow up on that clearly. There we go, Adriana's timing in.
It's got a
We were told that
mandate.
staff would not be available.
That's a risk.
Yeah, it's in a risk. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, right? Am I
It's
not
a
coming
what?
across as this is a risk?
What did he say? It's a risk?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, it's a risk.
What's,
Yeah, that's
what's the risk? I'm
The
sorry.
risk is that the implementation gets further delayed. We were supposed to do it August 1st, and
Right,
then we pushed it
okay.
back to September
So,
1st,
Dr.
and now
May-
we're at October 1st.
Somebody need to mandate it, that's
Well,
all.
Yeah, just hold on one quick second. For those that are watching the meeting, the audio is gonna go down just for a couple minutes, so that way they can reset the system, so Adriana can and Russ can actually talk.
Okay, that'd
Um,
be great. I'm not doing a very good job at trying to get their points across. Okay, and so she said that they were told that for the August dates, that there would be key parties on vacation.
If I could
Keep
keep
it-
Key parties on vacation.
I mean, how long?
Anyway,
No, I
Tyler,
mean-
when they give dates, it's not like they say we can do it anytime the week of August 17th. They'll say we could do it at 3 p.m. on August 16th and at 4 p.m.
Just
on
make
August
yourself
17th.
available.
Well, I mean, if
It's
you,
just basic contract management. We need to push
Right.
back on Tyler, and then we also need to push back on the staff to basically say, if you can't be there, we're
Right.
not trying to cancel your vacation, but who would you put in your place that could take notes? And
exactly.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Manker, I think you need to push your staff, or, having a designated person, if someone's, gone, that can do this training early on. I mean, I don't think we need to wait 3 weeks.
Okay,
This is
refresh me.
the
I'm sorry, I'm
employee
all over the
expense
place.
reimbursement.
Okay, employee expense reimbursement.
Expense reimbursement.
Oh, this went down too. Okay. Also take the initiative to listen to the recorded trainings when they get back. Okay. Oh, because you can't see. Okay, I'm on page 33. I'm getting ready to move to page 34. Okay? Everything on 33 says everything that I just said. We've been delayed. We cannot take on any more delays. If we take on more delays, we're moving into November 1st, which means you guys are moving forward in implementation without any support. So we have now taken up as many delays as we can. We're at a hard stop now. So we are going to do everything we can, and we're going to be a little bit more aggressive in pushing the city, which is what we're doing right now, to make sure that we hit that deadline. Okay, next actions. Of course, complete the remaining training. So obviously the 7/1 deadline is delayed. Updated timeline is going to be determined once we come up with a new training plan. Right now, the earliest we can move forward is October 1. In case anyone was curious what employee expense reimbursement does, although I did clearly identify that, that is up here. It reduces employee expense errors as well as segregation of duties, as well as more controls in place so that we know that there's never going to be a material misstatement in those employee expenses because people have controls. Their employee expenses are being put into a system, they are then being approved in the system, and then they are being accurately recorded. So there's no manual entry, there's no anything like that. All right, hold on. I guess she can hear me because she also said it also removes employees as vendors, which I guess she did not hear me say earlier. Yes, it removes employees as vendors. It also pays them through payroll. That's also true. Adriana, can you talk?
I can hear you, but I don't think you could hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, yay!
All right, good. All right, we're rolling. All right, so the last piece, and this is actually perfect time, we're into security workflow optimization. And this is about improving segregation of duties, improving internal controls. This is about if you have one person who has keys to the kingdom, even though they probably don't want to do harm, we are removing their access to do things to the kingdom. In other words, you should not have, the famous example, of course, is procurement and invoice payment. You should not be able to procure a vendor, maintain the vendor, put the vendor bank accounts in, approve the invoices and pay the vendor, because then people can just set themselves up for vendors and pay themselves and no one would be the wiser. So what this has to do is it cuts down on their full life cycle for everything. So if, like, for example, when we first came in, I think the city manager position had access to do everything. Dr. Maker doesn't need access to do everything. She needs access to see everything so that she can run the city. But she doesn't have to have access to do everything. So Dr. Maker was a position that was actually pretty significantly cut down on. So now she has read-only instead of access to actually do things. I think it was actually news to her that she had access to do things. So we have gone through and we have pulled those permissions. There are also longer-term some security recommendations. So we went through and did the immediate ones that are going to impact things like significant deficiencies. Now we have this sort of longer-term nice-to-haves that we strongly recommend finalizing, and these are critical. And those are workflow changes, sort of things that take a little bit more work or things that are not as critical. Obviously, the improper segregation of duties and improper also review of those who have access and segregation duties and terminating unauthorized or inappropriate access is a key purpose. If you are going to rely on the automation of the system as an audit, these things have to be locked down. The minute these things are not locked down, then you will go back to doing manual audits again. So we don't want that. So the faster we can get all of the longer term security risks closed and taken care of with Jay and Latanya and the team, the better off we're going to be. Adriana, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, we also made a recommendation to the ERP administrator and the IT team to have departmental meetings with each department to review standard role-based access security. That way, they, in conjunction with each department, are making adjustments and confirming proper permissions and workflow as needed.
All right, at this time, any questions on what's going on with the system? No, either way. I mean, I don't think her position, her permissions were updated when she became city manager. So, you know, and I pick on her because she's sitting here. But as she should have access to see everything because she has to make decisions for the city. But she should not have access to do everything. That's why she has department heads and IT people, and there should still be appropriate approvals. She should have access to approve things. So if there's a large procurement or that kind of stuff that you guys have already prior approved, she should be able to go in and in the procurement department, approve that procurement or approve that invoice for payment if she wants to, but not change the invoice to then approve for payment.
Correct.
Yes, it forces the more than one person touching things.
Yes.
But also, as Adriana appropriately pointed out, the longer term, it's also security workflow changes, right? So we're now looking at how you're giving security, what goes in what row, how things are entered in the system and approved. So it's more like the first hit was literally taking away access and making it so that we don't get a significant deficiency problem. The second piece is looking at the roles as a whole and making sure they're appropriate to fit the city's needs and also making sure that they're entered into the system correctly. So there may be a role, Adriana, give me an example of a role that has multiple tasks.
So, for example, finance. Finance could have multiple access points where they could create accounts. They could run and review budget, but they're not necessarily going to be entering invoices. They're more going to be approving invoices and then eventually posting those. So we don't want them to be able to change other records.
So what we've done is, for example, there may have been one larger role that covered all of those things that you just assigned, finance role 1, to these 4 people. We have now picked apart some of those roles so that you can segregate things appropriately. What else do we have for technology? If I'm correct in saying this, Adriana, we provided some recommendations, correct?
Yes, and we actually created some sample long-term roles for the IT department. We wanted to separate the way that security was created based on data access roles that would give users access to data within their department or the accounts that each department actually manages. And then we also recommended functional roles that give users access based on their actual function. So somebody from IT would have a functional role that granted them system admin access, but then they would also probably have a separate functional role that would give them access to enter requisitions for their department or enter invoices for their department. And then we also separated out how workflow would be built. Workflow could be built a couple of different ways based on just business rules, or we could create actual workflow roles. So in an event that somebody that's an approver left the city, instead of having to have all of those invoices or records stuck in one spot and having to do a lot of management behind the scenes to correct that, we would just switch out the user from that workflow role. So there's a few different layers. We created those sample roles for the IT department just because it was easier to test internally with IT, and we've recommended that they move forward with one department at a time and have those meetings with each department, create those updated roles in the trainer test environment, go through user acceptance testing with the department, and then move forward in putting them in production and moving slowly and doing it one department at a time.
This is also, I mean, that's also one of the reasons why, LaTanya is the chief administrative. LaTanya is also the chief ERP administrator. That's one of the reasons we're suggesting that she probably needs a second in command of someone to help her along, because not only is she keeping the system up, we're also still making changes. So she's now having to comply by this new, more rigorous process, as well as bring on additional functionality for longer-term prosperity. So just something to consider. What else do we have for the system? We still have one other topic. Sorry, can you hear me? All right, I'll just yell. Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm yelling at everyone and like I'm chastising when I talk this loud. Okay, so any other questions for ERP? Did everyone hear and catch what I said about LaTanya and needing a secondary helper? She has a backup. Jay is the backup, but she doesn't have someone that's dedicated to work with her. It's a lot of work what she's got, and then we dump on additional responsibilities, these security workflows longer term and those kinds of stuff. That's also additional work. So it's just something to think through.
And I also want to say that because of the pooled cash implementation, we've paused for the last couple of weeks to allow the team to focus on that being a successful go live.
All right, on to the transition plan. Again, lovely comment here. Cities thrive when they embrace change and innovation. The ability to adapt to new circumstances while maintaining core values is the key to building a resilient and prosperous community. Really important. We have made a ton of changes as an environment in the last 11 months. As you're hearing, there's several more coming. We have great hope and faith that the city will be energized by these changes and move forward. They have an opportunity for a clean slate to do so. So in order to do so, things have to be transitioned with the same vigor in which I stand up here every month and scream through this microphone to make sure the appropriate points are being brought to you. So when I say it's go time and I make those statements, you all know I'm not messing around. Someone is going to have to be doing that moving forward, and there's a number of transition activities that are going to have to be done in order to move forward. I've broken them off into these fat categories. When I met with James earlier, I talked a lot with him about accountability and a role in which I call the chief nag, which is you nag people to get things done until they can learn to do them themselves, but someone has to be pushing the bus. So one of the greatest benefits you have from our work, not only are we fixing the accounting system, we're doing the standard operating procedures, we're doing the reconciliations, but I sit and I push the bus. And so whoever is transitioning, they have to learn to push the bus, show accountability, make sure everyone's following up on everything. I mean, I can't tell you how many texts poor Dr. Maker gets from me every week, just have we followed up on this? Are we doing that? Just to make sure everything is moving forward. And you can see how easily it gets lost in some cases, right? You know, we need to follow up on some of the items through the ERP. So there has to be some organization and there has to be follow-up. Now, we've talked about transitioning the SOPs. Now we're at the point where we're starting to transfer the SOPs. I have talked about security. I have talked with transfer sessions to understand those who have been trained, the kinds of training that needs to be done. But the biggest piece of this is ongoing accountability.
To be done soon.
Russ, what was that?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I agree, but
I was telling my wife, she's falling asleep.
I'm doing my best. Don't forget, I still have to drive 2.5 hours home.
I'm sorry, you're doing amazing.
Anyway, so to ensure the SOPs there's more to it, right? It's not that we get to kick the SOPs over and say, okay, you're done. Someone has to pick those up, make sure new employees are trained on them, make sure, for example, when employee expense reimbursement comes in, there's going to be a new SOP for how to manage their employee expense reimbursement that Adriana and team will work through, and then we will hand it off to the city and someone's got to manage those updates. Auditors are going to want to see every year that they're being reviewed by the appropriate parties, reapproved, and retrained if necessary. So that is what's happening right now with SOP's transition. So we are, not to mention, that person who we're transitioning to is net new to the city. So I think I made a quip a little bit earlier about someone not wanting to read 49 pages. That is 49 pages of one SOP, of which there were 22. That does not count the additional financial policies and procedures, the additional systematic policies and procedures, and the additional overall mapping how information flows through the city, etc. So we also have to train the trainer on what that means. And when I said to James earlier that your first session with Christy is going to be next week when she's in town, that's going to be one of many. Because we're going to have to make sure that all of the knowledge and all the pain and all of the conversations that went into each one of those SOPs, that historical knowledge gets to the person who's going to carry them forward. Otherwise, if I'm a disconcerted employee who was upset that my employee whatever was taken away, I can go to James and with him not knowing the history a month from now and be like, oh, there's a mistake in the SOP, you'd have to change it. And he wouldn't know any better and he'd just change it and then we'd start the slow trail back to where we started. Mm-hmm. So we have to transition all of that historical knowledge and why the decisions were made.
Councilor Joyner?
Yeah, I have a question. Could we just go back to the previous slide?
No problem.
When we're going through all of this, where does HR interface? I mean, I am very concerned about, I just want to make sure that we are interfacing with HR, that, and I do not know if what the annual performance review schedule is, or if there is even an annual review schedule, but all of that needs to interface. And where do you stand on that? I mean, have you worked with HR or talked about any of that?
So it is not in our responsibility for how you are going to reward or penalize based on SOPs. That being said, I can give you my best advice and experience. Okay. And that is, that's what I was just actually going through this the other day with someone who has a completely different job. If step one for getting any good grade on your annual review or any additional bonus, Christy will tell this because we both worked at KPMG, you don't get your annual bonus if you haven't done all of your training, right? But in a consulting firm, but in your particular case, you probably go through and you rate employees, and you have an annual review process, what they're doing well, what's they're not. Like, step one, did you do your training, your required training? That's the first conversation that should be happening before you go through any of the other objectives or requirements that they have of their job when you are annually reviewing. So if you have, for example, any sort of 1, 2, 3% raise policy or whatnot, before you approve people for that, they shouldn't be getting raises if they are not doing their training. So there should be unfortunately, because people are like, oh, I know how to do my job, I've been here 20 years, those kinds of things, if they're not doing the training, they won't know how to adjust, and if you do not hold them accountable in the ways they're being rewarded and or penalized, they won't do it. I am an offender of that, P.S., so I understand that position.
I have a question.
Yes.
In regards to individual, who we talking about getting a raise if you get your training done?
So I'm not talking about
Give
if
an
you
example.
have an employee, for example, that you want to go up to have a promotion. So Christy's an employee of Hopewell, and Christy is a business analyst, and you want her to go up for promotion to be senior analyst. She shouldn't be considered for that promotion until she's completed all of her training. If you have, cost of living increases and those kinds of stuff, they shouldn't get their cost of living increases if they haven't done their training.
Think of it as a minimum requirement.
It's a minimum requirement to be employed.
Well, that's what I was thinking anyway. If you don't have your training, then you don't know what you're doing.
Correct. That's a very
And I'm not even
more blunt way of
talking
putting
about
it.
raise.
Do
I'm
we
talking
get-
about
do we
when
get
you somebody
bonuses?
that do know what
We
they're
don't
doing.
give bonuses.
Do we get merit bonuses?
Merit bonuses have not been budgeted in quite some time. So the short answer is yes, we can, but no, we have not in
Okay.
five plus years. And to answer the performance question, the module went active this year, and all the employees receive performance reviews electronically this year. In the past, it's always been by paper, and this year we activated the
Great.
performance module electronically through Munis.
But,
And everyone received their performance by July 1 of this year.
do they not sit down with with their,
They do, but we now just do it electronically versus
okay, well,
on the
it's-
paper.
yeah,
But the
that
same
really is
process
not a
is
moot
still
point,
the,
right, okay.
But yes,
there's a
this should hit
schedule.
your HR
There's a
manuals.
schedule for everybody, and somebody's looking out to make sure they've been done and all that.
well, this is the first time in 5 years we had one,
Okay,
Awesome.
all right.
a performance review.
So Bob would like to make a 30-second comment to add on to what I'm saying, and I have cautioned that it's a 30-second comment out of 30 minutes.
Ah,
We're done,
you
okay.
gotta get up to the mic.
All right, when we're done, he's got a 30-second comment. Okay. Anything else on the SOPs? Okay. Accounting remediation. Here are the things that have to be done ongoing. So one of the things that we are doing that the SOPs are requiring, and what we are doing is we're basically living the city with a how-to manual, right? If everything follows the way we're supposed to follow it, this is what you do, right? The other thing, other than, of course, submitting the financial statements, we are also working daily with the external auditors, which isn't really part of what we're doing, but we're doing it anyway, to do any adjustments that have to be done. So we're taking those phone calls, we're entering the adjustments. We are doing the submissions. The other thing we're doing is audit assistance. So we're collaborating a lot with the city when there are results coming up for the audit. So we'll be here to explain them, et cetera. And if there are things that are found, we will work with you on how to close them moving forward. I will say one of the things that was in our fiscal year 24 amendment to do the 24 audit preparation for you is, even though we are sort of done with that audit preparation, let's say, because we're ahead of schedule in doing those reconciliations, so perhaps we're done basically within a handful of days after we close the books, we are still going to work with you to answer your external auditor questions. So to our earlier conversation, depending on what that is, who that is, what the timing is, you should still be calling on us to help them move through. We're gonna have to transition that. So, obviously they'll go to their director of finance, and if there's anything outstanding, we'll still be available. Okay? All right, now ERP system implementation. The first thing we, of course, are doing are supporting all of the implementations that are going through, employee expense, completing the reconciliation using the bank reconciliation program, finalizing the security and workflow updates, completing the ERP milestone calendar. And I'm going to stop there because we haven't previously talked about what that is, and that is a little bit of what you were talking about. Can we get a timeline and that kind of stuff? Normally, when a system is being run within a city, there's a calendar that sort of says, listen, here's when we're going to do this, and here's when we're going to take on this functionality. Here's when we're going to audit this functionality. Here's when we're going to do our training for Tyler. You get certain hours of training from Tyler every year. Here's how we're going to use it. Here's how we're going to use it to better improve either our system functionality or our employee readiness to use said system, so that you're doing everything the best and brightest way. Also, as there are upgrades and those kinds of stuff, you'll need new training for that. You, at the beginning of every year, are going to want to put together a milestone calendar. So that's something we'll work with you guys on doing before we hit the road, as they say. And then the other thing we have yet to do is implementing the audit annual comprehensive financial report builder. That will help you do what we're doing now that we can do it in an automated fashion with a reliable system. That's one of the things you missed out on because everything had to be done manually. Tyler has a functionality that puts together what the auditor likes to see. So, it's like you hit the trial balance button. I'm making this up right now, and the trial balance appears, and then you review it and send it out. It becomes a lot easier and a lot less onerous when you're not doing it manually.
We start that training next Thursday.
It's like there's a voice from heaven. So we start that training next Thursday. And then I'm going to completely butcher this last point regarding implementing Socrata Open Finance contingent on accurate financial information. Adriana, could you please provide some more details on that?
Yeah, so the Socrata component that Tyler offers that is currently part of your Tyler contract is the transparency option that allows you to post your financials online. And we don't want to move forward with that. That's actually already in place, but it's not open to the public. We want to ensure that all the audits are completed, all the numbers and balances are accurate and proofed before we move in that direction.
So it will be in the end, you have that done?
Yes.
Your contract.
It's already part of your Tyler contract. You've already purchased and paid for it. From the updates and conversations we've had with the IT team, it's already been added to your system. It's a matter of us opening it up to the public. It's for transparency purposes, but we are not comfortable moving forward with that until the audit is complete.
You don't want to put bad numbers out there, of course.
No, not at all.
But it's no different. Like if you go onto the DC website, you can get all of their prior audits. They're all just listed there.
It's all the reporting, yes.
With all the backup of reporting. All right, so future steps, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how you guys can support the transition, and then I promise we are going to give it over to Bob for 30 seconds and be out of here. The transition of RBG's work and future steps. So, James we're going to start working with him. We had an earlier meeting with him. We had a more detailed meeting today. We talk a little bit about his responsibilities today, what he's going to oversee, how he can manage some of those issues, and then we're going to slowly we're doing it. James, this is how you do it, and now James, you're doing it, and I'm hawking over you, and then James is doing it on his own. So that's how this process will work as we go through, so everyone understands their roles and responsibilities. This last piece here is how can you support the transition? There are bullets here, And they are very smart bullets. Engage regularly, attend meetings, budget approval, foster teamwork, support leadership. But I'm going to drive home what I drove home and what I have continually drove home here. Accountability, accountability, accountability. Make a plan, assign a plan, hold whoever owns that plan accountable. That is something that you guys can do as city council to make sure that you are supporting the transition moving forward. Mr. Bob, your 30-second comment.
Are you done?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am until they have questions on your 30-second comment.
Somebody have questions?
Huh? Does anyone have any questions on anything that I've said before he gives his comment to close
How
out?
many deputy city managers do we have?
One.
Okay, where it says here, back the leadership of the deputy city manager to empower them in their role.
It should have said him or her.
Then
Power
I
him.
thought I thought maybe you might have him or her.
That's a very good catch.
It's a very good catch. Yes, we are grammatically incorrect. There is one, it should say him.
That's correct.
One of the, you got his responsibilities, right, his responsibilities, you got 4 bullet points, right? Right there.
Yep.
It's on, page,
It's right here.
46. You got 4 bullet points, right there for you. Yeah. That's your bullet points. And I got 4 more bullet points for you.
I gave him 4 more earlier too, so now we're up to 12.
All right. We good.
What are your 4 more bullets?
I got 4. We'll discuss it with you. I don't have any other questions. Excellent report.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Now we all just need to cross our fingers and hope that August 15th comes back favorable.
Councilor Jordan?
I just have one comment, and it sort of echoes Councilor Harris. And you all have accomplished so much in the time that you've been here. And I mentioned to our interim finance director yesterday, I guess, that he brought order out of chaos. And I think that it is very easy to minimize what has been done, but the truth is, it was just a disaster here. And, you've just done marvelous things. Now, I wish our audits were all complete by the end of the year and all of that, but those are some things that really, you cannot control. But this is pretty remarkable, really, and I just wanna say thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate that as a team.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not trying to prolong it.
Okay, Bob, you're up. 30 seconds.
30 minutes.
We even thank him.
Yeah.
I give Bob such a tough time. I'm so sorry.
Move out the way.
I just want to not crash your system.
He's trying to
Hold
go
on.
home.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm hoping that our next meeting, we can also have a summary of the presentation that was made tonight. Not the whole presentation, but it's a very important presentation in that we're rounding the bend with respect to our contract and the work that we're doing on behalf of the city of Hopewell. And at this point, from this point forward, if you've watched the movies Star Wars, we're now into warp space, speed, I should say. And we're turning on the combustion, we're escalating our work and trying to get to the finish line. And to do that, it's going to require, at this point, my team knows that I'm always not the nice guy when we get into this level of work. And so we're going to be pushing hard, both on our team level and both on the city manager and her team. Because the city has made a tremendous investment in the work that we're doing, and we're very proud of the work that we're doing. We're very proud of the team with whom we're working with. But at this point, as we round the bend to get to the end of our contract, the expectations from not only our team, but the expectation to implement what we are putting forward is going to be critical. And the other component of that is that once we leave, then the team, or the city manager and her team, they're going to have to, they can't tap the brakes. They're going to have to continue to push forward. If the city is going to become a high-performing city long term. And if the city overall is not going to be viewed as the city that cannot get its financial audits completed, we're going to accomplish that task and give you a report on, I think, August 15th?
Well, we're not accomplishing it.
Yeah.
Cox is accomplishing it
Yeah,
by August
and,
15th.
but I would, my point is that we're rounding the bend with regard to the work that Jack and his team are doing in working with the external auditors. And the city needs to get a contract with the external auditors for the years that, I think it was 24, 23, 24. We can't wait. We're at a critical point in this engagement as we get closer to the month of October. And so at this point forward, it's no longer, it's going to be, we're going to push the administration hard, and we're going to push ourselves hard, because we want to finish strong. And want to make sure that there is a playbook that we leave behind for the city manager and her team and the city council to hold the city administration accountable for carrying forward and not let this investment that you're making to improve the city fall by the wayside.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bob. And I would like to say that if you guys do end up, during this period of, high intensity and, closing out, if you guys do have issues that are not getting resolved, please feel free to bring it up to myself, because I have no problem bringing it up to city council or asking questions and providing, directives, for, administration. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? All right. All in favor say aye. 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 All opposed? Meeting's been adjourned.